All right, everybody, and welcome to episode 271 of the 9 Years podcast. I am Nick Draper. I am joined, as always, by the face of the BBC Sport website, Mr. Stuart Deakins, and thank you very much for downloading the show this week. We didn't have a game last week to talk about. However, we did have a press release or statement from the club, which we can discuss. We'll also reflect on our Don's Trust hustings for the election that we conducted on the weekend just gone. And of course, we'll be looking ahead to the weekend and our trip to Portsmouth, as well as a quick look back to an event 20 years ago in 2001-2002 season, which we weren't meant to talk about last week, but we ran out of time. So we're going to come back to it this week instead and quote, comment on our memories of that event. But Stu, before anything else, quick one from me. Big FA Cup replay game in the week. Stockport County hosted Bolton Wanderers. It was live on BBC Two. Stockport, after extra time, going through to the next round with a 5-3 victory, having got the replay with a 2-2 draw at Bolton's Stadium, whatever that is called. And yeah, I just thought that was a fantastic advert for the FA Cup. And it made me realise what is great about football, what brings people to football. And we lose sight of this. And it's such a shame that as we get into the later rounds of the FA Cup, they don't want to know about FA Cup replays because the bigger teams don't want to know and they're all distracted by whatever else is going on. I think, to be honest with you, as we said last week, Premier League teams seem distracted with the effort of having to sack their manager every 5 seconds. But it was a great advert for the FA Cup, I thought. And that, for me, is what football should be about.
Yeah, it was a great game. Great game. I really enjoyed it. Because also the night before they had Solihull Moors against
Yes.
Wigan, which actually again went to extra time and decent. It's good actually. BBC covering games is really good actually. I'm having it on that, and it's quite interesting. I managed to miss the first 4 goals of the Stockport game. I literally started it 10 minutes late because I didn't think there'd be early goals, as you do. And then I think I went and fed my cats, and then a goal went in, and I missed. And I literally, I was like the rain was going to be football good. I said, yeah, it's 3-1 to Bolton. I'm not seeing any of the goals live yet, but it didn't disappoint. Really good game, and because I'd watched Stockport on Saturday because they played Bromley at home, because they've got quite a bit of pressure on them. They've got a really good squad.
You're going to have to clarify this. You didn't travel up to Stockport.
No, sorry. I watched it on BT Sports because they covered it. So they were at home. Stockport were at home to Bromley. And Bromley, I think, are 3rd in the league. And the difference between the 2 games was Stockport looked like they had the pressure on them, obviously, home to Bromley. Should be expected to win. And then in the Cup, obviously, they weren't the favourites. Bolton were the favourites. And cracking second half and fully deserved. But, yeah, Stockley. Stockport County, massive ground. That home end, really impressive.
Yeah, but this is going back years when we used to play them. We played them a couple of years in Division 1, and Edgeley Park always had that big stand behind the goal. What you'd often see is it wasn't ever, or rarely was it full like it was as we saw it on Wednesday night, but you'd often see on the highlights as they were making their way to the exit, you have to come down to the front of the stand and go out that side. So if ever there was a late goal or anything like that, all you saw was tons of empty seats, but this huge bank of people standing just in the sort of concourse area. Yeah. But that was it for me. Great game, yes, but also all those elements that go into it. Full stadium, floodlights, atmosphere, everything you want. And I miss football as it was because at the top level, as we keep saying, it's turned into an absolute shit show. And I have no interest whatsoever, which is a real shame. But anyway, conversation for another day. Well, actually, maybe not so much because we had the Don's Trust election hustings on the weekend, and we had candidates aiming for the championship. And as I say, Stu, football at the top level has gone, as far as I'm concerned. But unfortunately, these things trickle down. The championship, everyone's favourite division. But I'm not sure I really want to be in that either, to be honest with you. I don't want your 12:30 kickoffs and your Friday night kickoffs and your 5:30 kickoffs and, oh, there's no Premier League this weekend, so let's bung a game on somehow. Just, yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, how enjoyable is it? I was fortunate to be invited onto BBC Radio London earlier this week on Monday.
And I have to just clarify this, ladies and gentlemen listening. That
I promoted myself, didn't I?
You said the face of BBC Sport,
Yeah, I
not the
know.
face of the BBC Sport website. You put yourself as the entirety of BBC Sport,
I know.
which I
I know.
think is a little bit of a stretch, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
Ironically, I commented that Alex Scott is actually the face of BBC Sport, and then she was presenting the FA Cup replay on Wednesday. But anyway, as
Yeah.
you were.
Do you know what my wife doesn't like, Alex Scott? Like, she's on everything. Now, I know that's not the worst thing in the world.
I'm
Um,
afraid to say I disagree with Lorraine on this one.
yeah, I thought you might do. Yeah, so I was on BBC Radio London, and it was quite good actually. It was a fans forum. There's a Sutton United fan, Mill fan that I've met, a Brentford, not Brentford fan, Charlton fan. Yeah, that's it now.
Obviously made an impression.
Um, yeah, and it was just the Mill fan. Really interesting what he was saying because, like, he said it's quite a bit boring. He was like, there's such a massive gap between your clubs going down from the Premier League. Your clubs from League One can't stay in it because of the finances. And he said, like, he was going, we're a decent team, but we're quite boring. It's not enjoyable to watch. And realistically, we can't make any impact to go up, and because we haven't got the money. And it was just, yeah, the Championship isn't. Hey, look, the Championship's got extra money, and if you look at, Wickham were in it for a season and would have got I think got an extra £3.5 million in terms of solidarity payments. So, from a financial point of view, yes, one season in it, as long as you don't. But it's like what Norwich do, and Norwich go into the Premier League, they don't really spend much, do they? They're quite happy to get relegated, take the parachute payments, the 100 million for failure. So yeah, financially it's good, but I'm not really too. It's sad, isn't it, when you say you're not really too interested about progressing?
It's because somewhere along the line things have gone wrong and they need righting, and I don't know what it will take to do that, but it needs to happen because yeah, the thought of going up and people aren't looking forward to it is a strange one. It's interesting the comment about the Millwall fans saying that they don't play particularly attractive football or whatever, and it's not great to watch. I was thinking about this earlier, Stu, in a different context. When did the style of play and the entertainment level become such a big thing as football fans? Because when I was going back, when I first started watching football, all I ever cared about was the result. And I was so intently worried and concerned with the result that it seemed to block everything else out. And I was thinking about this. Don't ask me how I was or why, because I can't answer that. I have no idea why I thought of this. But I was thinking back to the John Hartson Aston Villa equaliser when we got relegated from the Premier League. And I was thinking about the celebrations, which I can't remember because I was so lost in the moment. But everyone went absolutely mad, crazy. Don't remember it because I was so intently blocking everything else out around me, so focused on the result and nothing else. But now it seems, I don't know where it's come from. Where has suddenly this expectation of good... Did it start with Spurs? Because Spurs were always the ones, I think, around the turn of the millennium that were always moaning about this isn't how Spurs play football, and that seems to have spread to seemingly every single club in the country, where, as I think most fans would say, as long as you're getting results, they don't care.
Yeah, you're right. Spurs was probably it. West Ham, the academy, their style, they're very much of how they were, how they played. I think it's come about mainly on the fact of TV coverage. And clubs seem to want to have an identity, don't they? So Swansea have an identity of how they played football, went through it. But I think it's down more to the TV coverage because the attractive teams are the ones that are on TV an awful lot more in a certain way, and they're the ones that always spend the most money because they get the best players. But I think you're right. When I was younger, just wanted to win at all costs. But then at that time, Wimbledon was a case of we had to win to stay in the Premier League because we knew that we, and as it happened. But I think it's coming from football. If you look at games that are put on now, you don't get the rubbish teams that go on there. They don't attract people. Yes, of course, it's the Manchester Uniteds, Liverpools, etc. But I think it's just football has become an entertainment business. And I think as if like the marketing slant on it is that we have to be attractive to get people through the door. That's how I look at it now.
I disagree wholeheartely, and I think the Stockport fans that were in attendance on Wednesday night would also disagree because I think they were there to see a cup upset and they didn't really care about the style of football. They were there for the event, the occasion, and to see a cup upset. But hey,
It's an
anyway.
interesting point though, because if we go on to, we can relate it into Wimbledon with Robbo changing the style of passing, high press, attacking
Hmm.
football, um, and we've changed our style from a direct long ball sort of game. But are we in? I think we all enjoyed it earlier in the season when we were beating Oxford and the 3-3 draw with Bolton. But are we enjoying it now? We're losing. No.
See, I would slightly disagree on a couple of things. One, when the change of style happened, as I've made this point in the podcast previously, from the long ball game, like you say, the Wally Downs long ball game, no one cared. It was awful to watch. For a neutral turning up to watch it would have been like, what on earth is this? This is horrendous. It's basically get it to your fullback and lump it up and hope Hansen does something and hope Piggott then works something off Hansen. And then you had an England goalkeeper saving you at the other end. No one remembers that because we got results.
Yeah.
So that sort of supports and perhaps possibly contradicts, however you take what I said earlier, what I said.
Yeah. Do you leave? You go to Plough Lane. Do you go there to be entertained, or do you go there to win? Or do you, in an ideal world, you'd have both, wouldn't you? But would you and I leave? So the argument probably is in the Guisey game. We won the game by 0-0, but people might have left and gone, that was rubbish. But we got through to the next round. So it's a real difficult. What do you go? The average fan now. What do you go to? Do you go to see it win, or do you go and see as be entertained?
Well, I still bring it back to what you said just then, because also you mentioned the Bolton game and people saying it was exciting, entertaining football and stuff like that. I think it was a great result and it was exciting because we got 2 goals in 2 minutes. I think for large spells of that game, we were being bossed about, bullied off the pitch. But you see, get a couple of quick goals, get a point, that's forgotten. Everyone remembers the result. So
yeah. I agree. It's
musings.
But you're right. It's an interesting. It has been made into an entertainment. And the start of that, if we go right way back, was when Sky Sports bought the Premier League rights, and they used to have the cheerleaders and all the stuff on the pitch. Do you remember all that? Crikey!
Stop banging on about cheerleaders, Stu. You're never going to meet them.
No, but do you remember in terms of like Monday Night Football was like cheerleaders, bands?
I wasn't born.
The whole razzmatazz was that's where it started.
There we go, razzmatazz. Take a shot if you're playing that game. Stu said razzmatazz. I'll chuck social media in there in a bit. Don't worry, we'll get to it. But yes, I do want to talk about Robbo because you've mentioned there the change in the style and things that go alongside that as well. But just to dial back for a moment to where I was going with that was Donstros Hustings, which we mentioned. 12 candidates, 5 vacancies on the board. Hustings that we conducted. Roundtable discussions on Saturday are available on our YouTube channel, youtube.co.uk/9YRS podcast. You have 5 votes. Voting closes on the 4th of December, which is, I imagine, will be, because it won't get moved, I don't think, for TV purposes, our FA Cup tie at home to, now we know, Cheltenham Town. But no, it was a good couple of discussions we had with the candidates. Thank you all to them taking part. And happy voting.
Yeah, it was. Again, it was a challenging day because it's all live, isn't it? And we had.
Yeah, because I was sat next to George for most of it.
I know, I know. Do you know what? It was hilarious with George. George has no understanding of how to be discreet. So I think there was a couple of times where we said, to give you the benefit of what we were saying to George, was that he had the full view of everybody. So if somebody wanted, I think Adam in the first bit was put his hands up, wouldn't he, when he wanted to talk.
He wanted to, yeah.
The hilarious thing was that you were going through a question and George is trying to get your attention to tell him that Adam, but you're trying to concentrate on the question. It was hilarious. Like, if you tell George something, he takes it to the literal meaning of it. But yeah, she had to sit next to George. I had the pressure of sitting next to Freddie because he's obviously quite switched on with media and stuff like that, and he was sitting next to me looking at what I was doing. I was like, is he judging me? Is he thinking this is rubbish? But yeah, no, it's right. I think it went okay. I think the feedback, we did something different, didn't we? So I think on the whole, the feedback's been okay. Yes, there could have been something we could have done differently, but you've got 12 candidates. Very difficult to get them all in and all have their say, but I think there's some very good discussions.
Yeah, and of course, first time we've ever done something like that. No practice round or anything like that. So what you see was our first attempt at doing it. And if we do it again next year, we will take lessons on board. But that's enough about us. Where do we go with this one, Stu? So,
Where do you want to start?
website, Q&A article,
Yes.
State of the Union address from the football club. And I don't really know where to go with it, to be honest with you. What was your main takeaway from... What was the main message of this article that featured Joe Palmer, Mark Robinson, and Will Daniels?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I felt for a little while that the club needed to come out and not remind fans, but just continue with that. I hate the education, so I'm not going to use that. But it's more a case of just reminding fans what our... No, because you hear it sometimes.
Hold on. Yeah, you have to clarify that one because, talking to a teacher to come out with, I hate education.
Yeah, because education isn't right. Football's a game we all love. We all have different opinions. But I think it was important to remind fans of what the long-term strategy is. And if they... And do you know what? I've chatted to a few people and they don't really know what a long-term strategy is. So I think from that point of view, it was good to have that. But I think it got a little bit confused with the message they were also talking about. The players don't need people booing, and I felt the message could have come across in a different way, because what a lot of people have taken out of it is we're being told not to boo, and fans don't like being told what to do, as we know. And I think that
especially at this club.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem, is that's the overriding message you take away from it, when there actually was some really good stuff in it. I think it probably could have been two separate articles. You and I differ a little bit. I'm not one that loves the written reports, because I lose my attention. Like, I'm just looking at it now and my attention's gone already.
Your what, sorry?
I'd rather had it in a video or an audio. That's just me. That's how I like my media. But other people said they really like it in terms of the written word. But all I would say is, I just think the first couple of paragraphs have really, look, gone are the days when we signed aging players looking for a final paycheck. That hasn't gone down too well, because we could roll off the names that we've had in our team that, if it was their final paycheck, they pretty well earned it.
Out of interest, I'm trying to think of who would you say do we have down the years that's actually qualified into that role? I mean, I'm thinking David Connolly.
Jason Yule, but that was a loan, wasn't it?
Yeah, Jason Yule was a loan. Neil Sullivan was more of a helping Neil Ardley out of a bit of a sticky situation.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I don't think Abdu, Soares and Trotter are final paycheck types. No. Tyrone Barnett. No, I don't think they fall into that category. But sorry, that's just me musing. That's nothing really to...
No,
that's not really a comment on the article.
If you look at it from away, Paul Robinson was probably one of those that would come into it. But
final paycheck, though.
But if it was his final paycheck, because I don't... Where did he go after... Did he retire after leaving?
No, he went down... Well, kind of. Didn't he end up at sort of Havant and Waterloo with them? I was helping out with them down there.
That's right. But, Paul Robinson was probably one of our favourite players and instrumental in the League Two promotion.
Yeah.
So I just... Hey, look, do you know what? I think I understand the idea of us going young. I support it and I like it. But I just think we could have maybe... Yeah, I just think the paragraphs on it, we've just misjudged it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, like I say, I'm 100% agreement in terms of just a little reminder of the situation that we are financially, the fact we've reduced budget spending, the fact we're going with a different approach, the fact that every single time we play a game, then our squad and our young players are improving. And people are going to argue otherwise, because they're going to say, no, we started the season really well and now we're struggling a little bit. But no, what I mean is every single game they're learning and they're becoming better players because they're experiencing different situations, different emotions, having to react to performances that aren't going so well. So it's all for the future, for the long term, it's fantastic. But it's that argument of short term versus long term. And as we've said on the podcast, Stu, over the last few years, we've been too short term focused. Neil Ardley departs because we get someone in to get us from relegated. Wally Downs departs, we get someone in to stop us from being relegated. Glyn Hodges departs, we bring someone in to stop us from getting relegated. So at some point, you have to say, we can't just keep repeating this pattern. Repeated behaviour is not a good thing. Repeated negative behaviour. So you need to break that cycle. And that's what we've done and are doing. And absolutely 100% agree. Sometimes you have to take the rough with the smooth when you're doing this sort of approach.
Yeah.
It is. No, go on.
I was just going to say, because the point you were talking about earlier about entertainment and the style of play and results, that's also very paramount within this, isn't it? Because you've got some fans saying, well, let's recall Andrews, players that are on loan. But we shouldn't do. We shouldn't do. One, because they're not ready. The strategy is that we're going to send, I think we've got about 10 or 11 players out on loan. They will play probably 40, 50 games in men's football at various levels. They come back next season, and depending on how they've done, they probably go into the first team squad. And we go again. You know, but I said early on, I said, you know, the way we're playing is our players are making mistakes in the real world, in real football. Whereas normally you loan these players out and they make the mistakes at the lower level. So the teams at the lower levels make the mistakes. And you've probably got Jack Curry and you know, Andrews and many players probably making mistakes, but they're making mistakes at a lower level, maybe not being punished. But we've just got to stick in, and you probably won't see the benefit of what Robbo's doing until season 2 and season 3. Now that as a long-term strategy is tough, because at the moment we've already got a little bit of, we can't win. We're playing passing football, but we're going backwards, and we're not as exciting as what we were. You know, probably the worst thing we could have really done was started how we did. You know, the draw against Gingham, good game. Bolton, as you said, the Oxford destroyed them in the second half.
Doncaster,
yeah, and I think that's the problem. And we, you know, football fans, we react, don't we? We react, and I think, if you read through it, I totally get it. And, you know, you and I are old school, remembering when we sold our youth players. You know, one year we had 7 academy players, Neil Sullivan and Dean Blackwell and all that, and we sold a lot of players for money. We've got a very good academy. Well, you sell them for money.
What else did we sell them for? Like Sam Man selling Chris Perry to Spurs, and in return, he's getting a Ford Cortina and holiday home in Devon.
Yeah. But we've got a very good academy. So why the hell are we not utilising it? And that's what we're doing. And also, let's not forget that we actually changed the structure, and it does say it in this statement, but it's a little bit hidden because of so much data in there, that we're putting on longer contracts now. Yeah. So we all moan about losing players for nothing. Now the first one we've done was we put Aya Basal on a 3-year contract. Nick Zanev has got a new contract. Wasn't discussed how much the length is, but we actually are protecting ourselves, and financially, it's more important. You know, the product on the pitch is what people are looking at, but financially, if we don't get ourselves straight in a year's time, that product on the pitch isn't going to be as exciting. So it's a long-term strategy, but I totally get why fans have gone, we're rubbish at the moment, because we probably will look for the result, don't we?
And I think the comments about the booing, as we've mentioned, people don't like being told what to do. Well, I say that, Stu. Actually, if the last 18 months has told me anything, people actually really want to be told what to do. They want their freedoms taken away at every possible opportunity. They want big state to tell them what they should be doing with their lives at every single opportunity. But no, in general, especially at this football club, like we mentioned earlier, I think it's very difficult to try and control other people's behaviour. The greatest lesson I learnt in life was delivered by John Still, former manager of Dagenham and Redbridge, former manager of everybody's second club, Luton Town. And when Luton was struggling to get out of non-league, he just basically said the motto of the squad that year was control the controllables. Control the things you can control. Don't worry about the things you can't control. And if people are going to have a little bit of a boo at another backwards pass against Guiseley, I think there's a potential that you make that a bigger issue than it actually was by commenting on it.
Yeah,
and
it
could potentially backfire.
I agree. And what we've got to remember is Robbo is a highly experienced academy coach, manager, and done great. But this is his first team coach role in a professional game where results probably mean more than what the academy did in that way. And I watched many of Robbo's teams, and they didn't necessarily do well in the first half of a season because he was coaching them and developing and the style of play and stuff. So he obviously wants. He's very much a development culture, and he knows he can do it. But if you go to an academy level, you have a man and a dog. The old expression, isn't it? But there's not many people there. It's tough for them, and I suppose he wants an environment that they can be confident. They can be, they won't get criticised, and it's difficult because we all moan. We all moan. If someone doesn't do a pass, we all moan. That's us. But I think, me personally, I did hear the booing, and there was a lot of critique in that Geyser game, and it was just like, this is silly now. But there's no benefit from us as fans of being highly critical. That's not going to make them play any better. So we just got to remember, it's a young team. It's a very young team. And I think sometimes we forget how young they are. And we need to give them a better environment. But the problem is, as soon as you start preaching, fans get their back up. And that's where we are.
Yeah, and as I say, booing is never something that I myself would choose to do. I personally don't see the benefit of it. I don't see what you're trying to achieve when you're doing that. But people are free to disagree with me, and they've got their freedom of speech to do so. So, as I say, I'm not going to tell anyone else what to do. That's just everyone's personal opinions and personal thoughts on the matter. And I think, but actually saying that, one thing I will say, sorry, I was going to round it off there, but then I thought, is there also an element to this? Get ready, listeners, of social media exacerbating things. Like I said to you before, Stu, people are always on social media. They're always on Facebook, always on Twitter, always on WhatsApp, always having these conversations all the time. It never stops. And you suddenly get into a situation where a drama turns into a crisis. And then it's a case of perhaps being a little bit too close to things, maybe. Because I put the point to you that the other day, Wednesday it was, I looked at the article on the official site. It's had something like 5,000 views.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see how many it had because I was interested to know, of that 5,000, how many of those are repeat viewings? We don't know how many unique people have read the article, and how many are people that have clicked on a link on social media but then not bothered to actually read the article. We just don't know what the actual reach is. If you've got 7,500 fans inside the stadium and you've got hundreds on social media, there's vast swathes of people that aren't having these daily recriminations and panics about what the football club is doing and what the first team are doing. Does it sometimes become a little bit too... Do we become a little bit too insular because we're living it 24/7, some of us?
Yeah, you can do. You sometimes can be around it too much. You and I have done it where we've just had breaks. I tend to do it after Saturday.
Yeah, we were on a break.
Yeah. Saturdays now, I tend to stay away from social media in the first couple of hours just because it's all a bit raw, isn't it? And that's everybody. It's a bit raw, isn't it?
You mean first couple of hours after a result? After full time.
Even if we win. Just looking at 5,519 views of it at the moment. So, yeah. I don't think anyone's as bad. At games, I've not heard significant booing or significant moaning, anything different to what. But the guys again, there was less people there. Most of them were in the main stand.
I have to stop you there, Stu. Fewer people there.
Yeah, true. Not as many. Fewer.
Fewer. Yeah.
And hey, look, do you know what? We went in thinking we were going to batter them. Look at the FA Cup results on the first round, and there's many teams that struggled. So hey, look, do you know what? We're a fans club. We like to moan. We want them to desperately win. We really do. But it's a bit of a long-term strategy now, and we have to be patient. But we also know that you've got people saying let's spend money in the transfer window. The January window is terrible for business. We're desperate, and ultimately we've got £4.5 million to pay, and that's a big thing. And the budget, figures 1.8 million budget. Do you know what? I looked at the top of the conference, and I probably would say there's many a team in there that probably have a bigger budget than that in the conference.
Yeah, I'd say they definitely do. 100%. 100%.
So people are saying, look, let's spend a bit of money. I don't know. We've been hit with injuries, some really bad, key players Yeah, Will Nightingale. Ben Hennigan's got a dead leg now. Paul Callan-Bailly, Ollie Palmer.
Palmer's been out, yeah.
Yeah, so you know what? If we have people have said this, our strongest 11 is probably a match for anybody. Yeah, our squad is not, because it's made up of a lot of players that haven't played much football, and they'll be more experienced. I think we just got to, I think we just got to be patient. What I would say also is that I hear a lot of good things about Will Daniels, who is the person that we are using as all the data. And I know there was a bit of questioning about his statement about the youth players, the loan players that are out in League One, ours perform the best. I do know that from being around the management team sometimes here and there, we do look at a lot of data, and it's not just how many passes they've done. There's a lot of statistical data. The problem is sometimes though, when you say that when we're not doing very well, it doesn't. If we said that in September, people would have gone, yeah, I agree with that. It's just when you release the message, and there's a lot on here. That's the only thing I say. I'm just scrolling and I'm bored now, and not bored because of who's ever wrote it. I just struggle with I just struggle with words. I'm like, oh, I'm bored now. I'm literally breezing it. So yeah.
What can I say? Talking to an English teacher, I can't. Yeah. What can I say? Written word is everything, Stu.
I know, and that's what I mean. As journalists, I know that I know journalists that work in the. I was going to say in the printed media. It's not reprinted media now, is it? What's it called?
Well, still,
on the online media. I don't know.
Oh, I'd still. Yeah, I mean, I suppose the printed thing, newspapers and magazines, I guess they call legacy media now. So I suppose you can still say they just work in the media.
Yeah.
Anyway,
look, do you know what? The intention was right. I just think we, in future, we could probably just learn a bit from it.
Portsmouth on Saturday, travelling down to Fratton Park. I'm not, because I'm never stepping foot inside Fratton Park ever again, unless it's like an FA Cup quarter-final or something. Yeah, I've told you this before, listeners. Never going to Portsmouth again, never going to Southend again, never going to Northampton again, never going to Oxford again. Can't be bothered with these stadiums. Never going to Watford again, because Watford's a shithole and Elton John sucks. But Portsmouth, strange team, currently 10th in League One, 2 wins, 2 draws and 2 defeats in their last 6. So still somewhat inconsistent under the stewardship of Danny Cowley. Through to the next round of the FA Cup, they had a similarly narrow victory against Harrow Borough in the first round at home. Their 2 defeats they're so strange, Stu. They lost 4-0 at home to Ipswich. They lost 4-1 at Rotherham. They beat Sunderland 4-0 though. And I think last time out they won away at Wycombe, which is a great result, 1-0.
Yeah.
So I'm going to suggest that it's a difficult game for us, but I would not be at all surprised if we get something, because all the pressure and the expectation is on them, and they're going to have to find a way to break us down. It would be really handy if we didn't concede a goal in the 10 minutes immediately following half-time.
Well, yeah, that is still a problem, isn't it? I'm just looking at their team. It's interesting because their goalkeeper they've got a goalkeeper on loan who's playing. I think he's on loan from Man City from memory.
Right.
Bazunu, who they really rave about, but he's been dropped recently because of bad form, and they were raving about him. Pompey, so I think Bass is starting for them now. They got no John Marquis, he's out injured. Yeah, do you know what? I think I don't like Pompey either. I just don't like going there. So look, we haven't won there. I think the last time we won the league was when Taz was trying to get his last audition to get a signing at Pompey, wasn't it? The 2-0 win on Boxing Day.
Who was the midfielder that scored? What was his name? Frankie
Sutherland.
That's it. Scored that worldie from like 25 yards top corner.
Was he on loan from QPR or was released
Something
from
like
QPR? One and two.
One
You're
and
right.
two.
Yeah, he did. Last time won there in. That's the last time won there in the league. We did win there in the I think it was Carabao Cup at the time. But
I think it might have just been actually.
Yeah.
But the League Cup, because we don't like using sponsors' names. Sorry for that. That offends people. So the League Cup.
Yeah. So our record's not. Excuse me. Our record's not great there, and we go in with a lot of injuries. And if they don't want to use injuries like that, yeah, we've got. Ben Hennigan doesn't play. You got Shocker. You're probably gonna have to move Henry Lawrence.
Shays.
Shay's got
out as well, isn't he?
Yeah, 6 to 8 week. Yeah, do you know what? We are, unless Robbo is basically saying kick lumps out of each other in training. I know he said, like, you want them to train how they play, and I totally understand that. But we might need some cotton wool for them and put them in bubbles. You know the old games. You know the games when they had the big the bubble around them and they sort of bash into each other, like a
zorbing.
Ball. Is that what it's called?
I think it's called zorbing.
Yeah, maybe just put them in that. But yeah, we're down to the bare bones. But hey, do you know what? The thing is, it's not really. We were just discussing before we started. We've got Crewe at home in the week and then Fleetwood at home on a Saturday. And the worst thing, if you look at a league, the home league table, is Crewe at bottom, we're second from bottom, and Fleetwood are third from bottom in the home league. Yes, they're both travelling to us, but our home form is pretty poor. And I think we look past Pompey's a game you might get something from, but Crewe and Fleetwood are massive games.
Yeah, once we get past Portsmouth, we have, as you say, Stu, Crewe on the Tuesday night, Fleetwood on the Saturday, and then the following Saturday we have second round FA Cup, which again, if we get through that, you're always dreaming of a huge payday in the third round. So it's a big week. That is a big, big week. But for Portsmouth, a quick score prediction.
I don't think we'll win. 0-0.
I think we're going to get a surprise 2-1 victory. Don't ask me why I think that, but I do. And then we'll go and stuff it up against Crewe, because that's what we do. Before we finish off, Stu, I wanted to look back to 20 years ago this week, but we didn't do it last week. So I'm going to do last week, this week, and then we'll reset and go again, next week. But the reason I wanted to do this is because last week, aside from the fact that The Others was the number one film in the box office with Nicole Kidman, which is a fantastic film, you should all go back and watch it. Love a psychological thriller. Similar to Last Night in Soho, which I don't think is, well, you might get lucky if you're still in cinemas, but if you get a chance, psychological thriller, very, very good. With, what's her name out of The Queen's Gambit? Anya Taylor-Joy, of whom I am a big fan. Very impressive performance. Anyway, 20 years ago, November, we had a Friday night ITV digital home game with Sheffield United in the old Division 1. I don't know if you remember this, Stu. We drew 1-1. We got a late equaliser. Was it Kevin Cooper positive? I think Kevin Cooper got one the following week against Barnsley away, but they almost seem like similar, identical goals. Yeah. I'll check out who scored that goal. But the attendance was 4,937, which is Wimbledon versus Sheffield United in Division 1 would get, I don't know how much more these days than that.
Oh, yeah.
It would sell out Plough Lane. But do you remember what happened after the game?
Basically, we couldn't get out. And we were in the boardroom at the time, basically because that's where it was safer. Even though there was no real, I don't think there was any danger to us. But of course, a certain person was a little bit worried.
Was that Neil Warnock?
Possibly at that time. I can't think now.
I think Neil Warnock was allowed to escape the protest because he said that he had to get back to an ill relative or something like that. I'm not sure how. I don't know. But yeah, the away coach was blocked in, couldn't go anywhere. I think it all started on a whim. Somebody said, if we're not going home, neither are you. Okay, let me just, before I tell you why I'm laughing, it wasn't the most sensible thing. I'm not sure Sheffield United's first team were in particular causing us any undue stress or contributing to the situation with Milton Keynes whatsoever. So it seemed a bit of a strange target on that occasion. I guess people just got caught up in the zeitgeist of the time, the sort of mob mentality. I'm just laughing when it was Kevin Cooper that equalised. So he did it twice in 2 weeks, basically. But the BBC Sport website, Stu, this is your company. Sort it out.
I wasn't there.
They refer to Jodie McAnuff. Joby McAnuff.
Yeah, Jodie McAnuff.
Jodie McAnuff.
Who's now retired. That makes you feel old, doesn't it?
Yeah. Let's not put that thread too long. But yeah, so that was the memory of the famous Sheffield United coach protest on a Friday night. Thankfully, I was long gone by that point. Nothing to do with me, Gov. Strange one. Real strange moment, because you think with all that going on with the Milton Keynes move, and it never got violent. People didn't sort of take direct or extreme action really in protest, and that seemed to be the most extreme thing in that sort of regard that was done. And I just felt it was targeted at completely the wrong people. Thought it was a misstep. But anyway.
I think at the time we just didn't have many ways of protesting. You know, if you think about it now, and I've said this many times, now you've got social media, so you can get. I don't think it would ever happen now, because I think the social media would get enough people. But it was a live game, wasn't it? And it's just taking the opportunity, and it was Sheffield United. That's the reason for it. Can I say something, by the way? When you talk about films, very off topic, but I have to say it. I actually watched a film this week. And that may sound really strange, but I don't tend to watch a lot of films. I watch a lot of series because they're longer. I need more.
Okay.
Yeah, I need it longer. Yeah, anyway,
you need more length.
Yeah. So I watched
something to sink your teeth into.
Yeah, I watched Central Intelligence, which had Chris Rock and Dwayne Johnson. Do you know what? It's one of those films. It's the most pathetic comedy, but you know when you just need a laugh and you're laughing, and you think, I was in stitches. So it was on Netflix. Was it Netflix or Prime Video? If you really want a pathetic comedy, there you are.
I would say if you've got access to streaming services and you want to watch Dwayne Johnson, subscribe for $9.99 to the WWE Network and watch back his classic run in WWF/WWE from around 1997, about 2004. On that note, I think we'll wrap it up. Yes. Thank you for joining us, Stu.
No problem. Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. Updates from the game with Portsmouth at Fratton Park will be on our Twitter at 9YRS Podcast. Don't forget to vote in the Don's Trust elections if you are a member. Do that by the 4th of December. I didn't mean to rhyme there. I can't think of another word that would rhyme with remember, December, dismember. Let's not go down that route. Alexa Bliss, bag first, milk last, 2 + 2 = 4. We shall speak to you again next Friday.